The Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors: EliteForm.com and IgnitionAPG.com. And now, the Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast. Welcome to Iron Game Chalk Talk with your host, Ron McKeefery.
Every time our athletes walk into this weight room, they're going to be pushed to the max.
Let's go! Everything you got!
On this podcast, hear Coach McKeefery's straight talk about training, featuring the top strength and conditioning professionals from around the world. And now, here's your host, Ron McKeefery.
Hey guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery, and this is episode number 78. Iron Game Chalk Talk is a weekly podcast where I bring you experts in the field to talk shop. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to us on iTunes or YouTube, or join the mailing list at ronmckeefery.com to stay up to date with the latest episode and anything else that I have going on. This week, real excited to have Joe Defranco with us. Joe is a phenomenal strength coach. His gym up in New Jersey is widely considered one of the best out there. He's got some really cool things going on right now. In fact, moving his gym from New Jersey to Texas, and we'll get into that. But we go into his journey and how family and a code of ethics has kind of been everything's been built around. We talk about how he evaluates athletes when they come to the gym for their first time. We get into a little bit. He took on professional wrestling about 5 years ago, and how as a strength coach, not really having experience with that sport, he was able to come up with a needs analysis and create a program design working with a high-level athlete. And so I know you're going to get a ton out of this episode. Before we get started, though, I want to make sure we recognize our sponsors, Ignition APG and EliteForm.com. EliteForm is a sports science company based in Lincoln, Nebraska. And, guys, the show doesn't go on without the sponsors, just covering the costs associated with it and things along those lines. And, real excited to announce that EliteForm has come back on for 2015. But, when talking to them and talking about metrics and what kind of value we're bringing to them and things along those lines, they stopped me pretty much in my tracks and was just talking about that they really have just such a strong heart and desire to help provide resources to strength coaches that really at the end of the day we didn't even take it any further. They just felt like what we were doing with Iron Game Chalk Talk is something that they definitely wanted to be a part of because it feels like that it's helping to make the profession better. And it's exactly my mission. You guys know that. And couldn't be more excited to have a partner that shares that vision. And so make sure you check out EliteForm.com. Go to their Twitter page. Follow them on Twitter. They're always putting out, again, resources. It's not a sales pitch. It's simply, hey, these are some pretty cool things going on out there right now. And some people that are using their products and things like that. But definitely check them out. I know that you would benefit from that. Lastly, if you enjoy our podcast, you'll definitely enjoy strength-ondemand.com. Strength on Demand is an online archive of strength and conditioning clinic presentations that myself and Rob Taylor have put together from various clinics from around the country. And again, it's just a way to sharpen the sword on your time. You're able to access it anywhere. You have an internet connection and watch clinic presentations from all these great clinics. And so it's been a huge resource for me personally. It's really why we created it, and been able to share it with all of you as well. So check that out. Great product. Definitely worth your time and your investment there. So sit back, enjoy this episode. Know you're going to get a ton out of Joe, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. Super excited to have a guy that I've been following for a long time. We've trained, some of my athletes have gone up and trained with him, and just a guy that constantly puts out things for the community and does a fantastic job, does it the right way. Joe Defranco, appreciate you being on the show, man.
Thank you for having me, man. It's an honor.
Appreciate that. Hey, Joe, briefly, man, because everybody, they can do Google search and they get everything, but briefly, talk about how you got into the field and kind of what's led to your current position.
All right, yeah, I think it's probably could find this. I feel like I'm always telling the story, but it is. I'll brush through it pretty quickly. Football was always my passion, my first passion from 3 years old. Man, I loved. My parents parents said I would sit in front of the TV and kind of understand the game. I grew up watching Walter Payton and Earl Campbell.
Yep.
Everything was 34. It was just obsessed with it. Played all through. Started at 7 years old, Pee-wees, and all the whole deal. And even went to. We always joke around, as much as I'm proud of my alma mater, Bergen Catholic High School in Oradell, New Jersey. I solely went there for the football program. It's got a great academic reputation and all that good stuff. But all boys Catholic school, I had to wear a freaking tie every day. I'm more of a sleeveless shirt guy.
No doubt.
But they were the best football team in the state at the time. Nationally ranked type of thing. And I was like, that's where I want to go. So, traveled a half hour. I was the only kid from my town to go to Bergen Catholic High School. It was about a half hour away. Not a big sending town to Bergen Catholic, but, just obsessed, dedicated my life to training for football. And that obviously led into my next passion, kind of paralleled, was training. And then I loved training for football as much as I loved playing football, and that's where a lot of people have heard the story. My dad was a New Jersey State Trooper, but just because his passion was always training, he competed in powerlifting, but his big thing was arm wrestling. He was third in the world in arm wrestling, state champ, I think 6 or 7 times. So was just obsessed with strength and power and muscle. And so I grew up in that culture, but he never pushed it on me. I was the one, I think since I was maybe 7, I begged him to take me to the gym, and he made me wait until I was 12. And I'm telling you, 4 or 5 years of me, please let me come to the gym with you, let me come to the gym. But it was push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, box jumps onto the stairs in my living room. Like he had me doing. We look back, and he'll always kind of put himself down and say, man, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. You know so much more at this point. But when I look back, he actually had me doing the right stuff. I did body weight stuff from 7 years old to 12. Then he introduced me to the weights. And, I was by far the biggest, strongest kid during those early years. I was working out like a maniac in his gym. So what I was getting to was he had a gym, which was a warehouse, on top of this factory, broken down, kind of in the ghetto of Patterson, and it was all just police, fire, and military guys. They didn't advertise. It wasn't a public gym. You paid $10 a month. You got your own key. If you didn't put the weights back, if you were disrespectful, they physically kicked you out of the gym. I watched them, literally grab guys in the middle of their set. You didn't pay your dues last month. Kick them out of the gym, lock the door behind them, take the key. So it was just like that's where I think I became just obsessed with that type of an environment.
Absolutely.
You walked in there, no TVs, no air conditioning, no heat in the winter. It was just a badass gym, and I loved it. And to this day, I think back of, you always think of certain programs you did where, that's when I got the best results. I'll always remember that time of my life. That time of my life, with all we know now, and I've been able to talk with some of the best coaches in the world and have relationships with them and train at gyms all over the world. And it's like my dad's gym, Empey's gym in Patterson, New Jersey, set the tone for when I got into this profession. I wanted to duplicate that. And then, growing up an Italian kid in New Jersey, it's like watching Rocky and then watching him train from, Mr. T and the Russian, getting ready for Ivan Drago. I was like, it all meshed. I'm like, that's the type of atmosphere, that's the type of gym I would love to have. And,
that's awesome.
But, and how the gym thing happened was when I was in high school, a lot of people have heard I had bad pain popped up out of nowhere, really affected my senior year, although I still played, didn't miss a game. We were state champs, nationally ranked, the whole thing, but I definitely was probably operating at about 60% and still had all state honors and all county honors and all, but the bigger time schools, obviously when they were watching tape, could see something's a little different from him from his sophomore and junior year. Lost a lot of scholarships, ended up going to a Division III school, played, but even literally now I'm at maybe 50%. Like I just have severe pain 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I played my freshman year, tried to my sophomore year, quit because I just couldn't take the pain. Thought, let me get this back thing taken care of, then maybe even I could transfer to a bigger school again or something. But dealing with my back ended up being a 4-year ordeal.
Sure.
We went to every top doctor, neurosurgeon, everybody, psychologists, people trying to think the pain was in my head. And it was a dark time and a bad time for me. But 4 years later, they discovered a tumor growing in my sacrum. Emergency surgery. They removed it. Literally, I think it was the next day. Then that severe pain I was having went away. I was like, that was it. Thank God it was benign. But the damage over those 4 years, I had 4 surgeries, procedures that were basically experiments at the time that
Right.
kill the radio frequency where they kill the nerves, and I had more shit done to me that is almost barbaric when I think of it. I had a biopsy where they went through my stomach to take bone from the sacrum
Damn.
to get the anterior portion. So even though they removed the tumor and so-called healed me, I still have nerve damage in my left leg, no feeling in my right thigh, drop foot on my left leg. I have no tibialis on the left side.
Damn.
I always say I always had skinny calves, but they're not as skinny as I have a little bit of an excuse. I still have severe nerve damage down that left side, so I'm literally just like a bone and a foot. So
Wow.
for those telling me to train more calves, unfortunately, it's not that easy for me. So the pain is something I deal with on a daily basis. Definitely not looking for anybody's sympathy. It could always be much worse, but
Sure.
It sucks, and it's something I deal with, and my training is very limited, but I'm passionate about it. I love training, and when my football career was taken from me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, I cried like a baby, I'm not going to lie.
Yep.
I remember the day distinctly where I came to the conclusion, I can't play anymore. My body I'm in too much pain, I can't move, I can't bend, and it was like depression bad for longer than a couple days, but it was only a couple days before I realized I need to focus my energy somewhere. I can't be sitting on the couch feeling sorry for myself.
Sure.
I had no plan B. I always thought I was going to play in the NFL like every other kid, I guess. But then it kind of hit me like, shit, I'll study exercise physiology in school, and I'm going to do something in this field. And, that led me to, thankfully, the college I went to, a small school, the College of New Jersey, it's called now, it's in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. They had what I think was I felt like I got a great education. They called it corporate fitness, but it was basically, I had my exercise physiology courses, kinesiology, anatomy. I had a great background, I felt like, for just the basic science.
Right.
As you all know, you don't learn any of the specifics or the practical stuff in school, but got myself a nice foundation, and after college got an internship, worked for 5 years in the field. I was fortunate, like we talked about before, at 21 years old, I had already known that I want to do something in this field. So I was training athletes, predominantly 7 to 14-year-olds in the beginning, but
Right.
I was training athletes at 21 years old, and a couple years into it, it started getting some high school kids, some college kids, even trained a couple NFL guys originally, and then 5 years after working for someone else, I ended up starting my own business.
So, that's awesome. That's a great story. That's pretty much how, to some degree, that's kind of how we all get into it, right? You're a former athlete, fall into the passion, realize that we're not as good of an athlete as we might think.
Exactly.
And, we go that direction. And I think the cool part about it is those lessons. There's a book. I try to, the guys that are on the show know this. I try to read a book a week, and I rotate it between, a business leadership, a strength and conditioning, and then a family book. And the book I'm reading right now is Raising a Modern Day Knight. It talks about, how as fathers we have to impart this code of conduct on our sons. And if we don't do that, they're searching for it the rest of their lives, And so obviously your father had that kind of code of conduct. It's kind of how you operate your business, how you operate your life, and it just kind of transcends that environment.
Without a doubt.
You've got an unbelievable just inner drive of commitment and dedication and passion to whatever you do. And that early on it was football. Now it's your business and your gym and the things that you're doing, your family. I know how much of a family man you are. What do you attribute outside of those things to the success that you've had in the performance enhancement industry?
I don't want it to be a cop out of an answer, but that is, if the answer is passion. I can't go outside of that, and I talk about it all the time because I've gotten asked this a lot, and I've spent a lot of time trying to think about a better answer.
Right.
But the fact remains, because it's the only thing, because I know I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I have a great family. I couldn't ask for a better family, but we don't come from a ton of money where my parents were like, hey, here's $300,000, go start a business.
Right.
Either, my dad was a state trooper. My mom was a school teacher who ended up, my mom has multiple sclerosis, so she had to retire early. Average family income wise.
Sure.
I'm also not saying I grew up in the ghetto and I had nothing.
Right.
Super happy growing up, but I didn't have the money to start a business. Didn't have the business knowledge. I had none of. I think I had one business course in school I had to take with the major, and I probably got like a C in it, and I don't even remember it. And so we have that. I got an 890 on my SATs, so I know I'm just not the most intelligent guy in the world.
Right.
How do I have a gym that outlasted other gyms? There's been dozens of gyms that have opened and closed. I can't tell you how many times people come in, oh man, did you hear so-and-so is opening up down the street? Oh, they just opened up this huge facility. It's got an indoor football field. What are you going to do? Somebody's in my industrial park. Somebody just came in an industrial park, opened up a gym, literally two buildings down. And it's like, and a lot of them did. It was, oh, they have so-and-so backing them. They have money. They have this. He has that. He's got this guy endorsing them. And how have I outlasted them? The only answer is passion. I know I just want it more. I truly do love it. It's not a bullshit. Everybody says it. All the books now say it. Turn your passion into profits and this type of stuff. But it truly was. I turned my passion into my profession, and that's how I'm able to work 15, 18-hour days without me feeling like, oh, I worked an 18-hour day today, because it doesn't feel like it, because I love it so much. If I had a job outside of this field, when I came home from my 9 to 5, I'd probably be reading about training, and I'd be at the gym somewhere, and that would be my kind of hobby or my passion on the side. So since I'm able to make a living out of it, it's the only answer. You can't teach it. You can't copy it. We've had gyms open up close to us where their biggest sale was, we do what Defranco's does. We have the same equipment Defranco's does. They would, whatever video I put on YouTube, the same video would go up tomorrow on their YouTube site. And again, not that I invented any of the exercises I'm doing on YouTube, but that copying and trying to be like somebody else, if you don't have the passion, you're just in it. Can't tell you how many people I know that quit their job doing something else and got into our profession just because they see the success of Defranco's or other successful people, and they think there's a ton of money in it, which is you have to be in this field to know it's a whole different ballgame.
No doubt.
What people think, they say, oh shit, yeah, I see that Defranco. I see him training NFL guys, and man, that looks cool. And they're in it to make money. They think, this is a moneymaker. I live in an area where there's a lot of high schools and a lot of money, so I'm going to open up a gym because I'm going to make a shit ton of money.
Yep.
And then if you get into something for the money, you will be out of business. If you make it 2 years, you were successful, because everybody that started it, because as soon as they say to me, oh, there's a lot of money in this area, or oh, there's a lot of money in this, or oh, you can make a lot per hour, right? You're in it for the wrong reason. You're not going to make it.
No doubt. And that goes to any.
The answer.
That's coaching. That's business. That's anything. Where, everybody asks me, what hobbies do I have? I have no hobbies. I don't golf. I don't. This is what I do. You got to. And I tell our young coaches that they got to want to do it for free. And if they're willing to do it for free, they'll have success. But. One of the things that I always talk about on the show is as a strength coach, you have to be three things to be successful. You have to be a great technician. You got to know how to do the lifts, teach the lifts, spot errors with the lifts, all those types of things. But where you separate yourself is by being also a great manager of time, people, and resources, and to be an entrepreneur where you're forward thinking and you're never satisfied and all those types of things. And obviously you've done that with your business. What makes the gym, from maybe a business standpoint, or from just a business model plan, whatever it is, what makes the gym stand alone amongst all those gyms?
I think that, again, I'll start the passion of it being run by people who want to be there, who truly love it. That's my answer number one for everything, and it's truly what I believe. I can't overstate it enough.
Right.
But I like the fact that you brought those things up because it definitely is important, especially this day and age. The kind of hardcore like strength coach guys get mad at people who market themselves and put up YouTube videos. Oh, well, yeah, he markets himself. Like, dude, unfortunately, this is the day and age we live in.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be talking right now if there wasn't YouTube and websites and Twitter. You wouldn't know who I was, and I wouldn't know who you were.
Right.
Triple H would have never called me if it wasn't for the internet. At this point, for the last 7 years, I wouldn't have had a client if it wasn't for the internet. Now, with that being said, and this is what I tell all the young coaches, whether they want to get into the collegiate or the professional level, the team setting, or the private sector.
Right.
Focus 100% of your efforts on the technical mastery first.
Yep.
One of my biggest pet peeves is getting an email from a 21 or a 22-year-old kid and them asking me for advice on the ebook that they're writing. It's like, at 21, you should not be writing an ebook. Who have you trained and what kind of experience have you had that you feel that you should be charging people to get that information from? And I'm not saying you can't be knowledgeable at 21 years old.
Absolutely.
But I just look back and using myself as an example, the first product I've ever put out was my Mastering the Combine tests. It was the VHS tape. And that, to me, was like the bare minimum of experience you should have. Now, I was, again, started training, if you want to say, 8 years old or 12 years old.
Yeah.
So it's been a lifestyle, but professional, getting paid to train athletes for the NFL Combine or an NFL Pro Day. At that point, I had been doing it for 5 years. I had over 100 college kids that either got drafted or signed with NFL teams. So I felt like 5 years of experience. I had the 10,000 hours of like watching 10-yard sprints and 40-yard dashes. We actually went through the training logs of each guy averaged running, 10-yard sprints a session. We would do 2 acceleration sessions a week. So about 20 10-yard sprints, 15 guys each over the course of 5 years. It was like I watched like 30,000 10-yard sprints and 40-yard dashes. So my point being, 5 years, tens of thousands of hours in this one discipline, and over 100 different clients, not just my buddy from high school got better and I wrote about it. 100 different people, different skill levels, different schools who had made it to the NFL. And then that's when I said, I feel like I got some really good information that I could share. Right. And to me, that's the bare minimum. I'm glad I didn't put that tape out a year or 2 earlier. And the reason why I know the timing was right is because we are, whatever it is now, 10 years, 12 years later from when that VHS tape came out. I've tweaked a couple things in this specific example, in the 40-yard dash stance. I've tweaked a couple things on the bench press test. But if you're a dude and you buy that VHS tape today and watch it, 99% of the population will get better.
Right.
So yes, I've progressed. I've got a little better, but it shows me that it was the right time for that product. That I'm not like, oh man, I don't know what the hell I was talking about back then. So. And why I got on that little bit of a tangent is I think that was my first product, and you only have one chance to make the first impression. So I started out kind of getting a name in the football community for the specific combine stuff, and then that kind of trickled into training for football, which is drastically different than just the combine. But I think it was the technical mastery or close to trying to become a technical master before I started marketing, hey, come to Defranco's, we're the best in the area for training your football player for the NFL Combine or his high school workout or whatever it may be. And I think I earned people's respect that way because they did the things I was teaching or the things I was saying on that DVD. It worked. And then when I put out another product, it was, that worked too. And then next thing you know, I feel like I kind of hooked some people in. I earned their respect. And then that's what changed it from the 21-year-old kid who goes on YouTube and says, we're the best training facility in the world, we did this, we did that, and you realize he opened up 3 months ago, and he's only been doing this for, 3 weeks.
And the guy trained there one time. And
you can never get that back, that first impression. You can never get back. And so I always attribute that kind of, I was a technical guy. I didn't read a business book, and this is a mistake I made. So I'm not saying to do it, but just to kind of hammer home my point. I didn't read a business book until maybe 3-4 years into owning my own business.
Right.
But it's also a good lesson of how important the technical stuff is, because I was getting such great results and the people loved the atmosphere of the gym and they loved everything about it. They told their friends came, and my business exploded with zero business background.
Right.
And then once I had to expand and go into the bigger gym, that's when the headaches start coming. 500 square foot storage closet. You could be the technical guy. That's all you need. Business is booming. Not too many things to worry about.
Right.
Once you start hiring staff and you have a bigger facility, it's your own facility. You got rent, property taxes, liability stuff, health insurance for employees, and all that other stuff. Now you need to get your shit together in business. But technical mastery before marketing strategies and mastery.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
Well, and in that example of the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur, you can't be such a manager that you have no technical skill. You're going to fail every time. And same thing. If you always got your head in the clouds, and you're looking to the next thing, you're gonna neglect what you got right in front of you. And so making the big time where you're at is always the most important thing. But one thing I'd add to what you do, and I know this about you, is that you did a ton of research and practical experience, not just that book knowledge. Like you said, you just didn't read it in a book. You put out a DVD. You you watched 10,000 hours. You talked to probably 10,000 coaches. You saw 10,000 different ways to do it, and then you came up with what has worked for you and worked with your athletes, and then you shared that with everybody as more of an opportunity just to say, hey, look, this is what I'm seeing. What do you think?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another thing. When I do now, doing more consulting and business coaching, when I'm business coaching for personal trainers or new gym owners, one of the things I say you have to do this day and age. Now, we're talking about maybe not sell an ebook and sell products when you're new, but definitely you have to give away free information.
Sure.
You need to go on YouTube and give that tip of the day, or instead of writing an ebook, write articles in the beginning, and again, that's how you win people over and you earn their trust. The best advice I didn't listen to was, I had a couple people that knew me personally and knew how passionate I was at a younger age, and when I first started my business and I was developing my website, I had a couple guys that I really respected, from a business standpoint and online stuff especially, but they knew me growing up that were like, you can't be doing that Ask Joe Q&A. Like, you're going to give away all that shit for free. This is your living now. This is your profession.
Right.
You're too generous. You're too nice. Don't give it away. We can make a nice little paid section of the website. That's the members only section.
Right.
And I almost did it, but then I was like, no, I want to. Who's going to buy that? Thankfully, I'm definitely not the smartest guy in the world, but one thing I'm glad I realized back then was, who the hell is going to buy that membership site? I just started. They don't know who I am. The internet just kind of got popular. They don't know what I've done the past 10 years. They don't know at 8 years old I was already reading and studying this shit. I'm the new guy.
Right.
And you need to earn people's respect like any other aspect of life, sport. I'm the new guy in the locker room, so I was like, no, I really, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I would stay home on Saturday nights just to answer Ask Joe questions, because I genuinely just enjoy helping people, writing, doing videos, and the best business decision, if I had to boil it down to one of all the things over the past 20 years, it was giving away all the free information I have given. It has come back tenfold.
Yep.
If I had to do it over, I wouldn't change a thing. And I'm just so happy I did it, and I make sure I kind of instill that on the younger guys now too.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Especially in the coaching community, it's like you come across these coaches that and deal with mentoring a lot of young coaches and putting them out there, and they come back and get information. It's like, this guy didn't want to share this guy didn't want to share that. And I'm sitting here going, it's all stolen anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all stolen anyways, and I guarantee you how we do things is different than how they do things. And that the proof's always in the pudding. But I want to go back to a point you made about marketing yourself, and there's you put a podcast out, or you do an article, or you put a website up, and you're right. There are those that are like, either A, he's making $1 million, and it's which we know is not true, or B, they're just trying to be self-promoting, and there's marketing, and there's marketing like a douchebag, right?
Yes.
And you can definitely market yourself and brand yourself as part of an opportunity to stand out in a busy environment, and if you do it the right way by giving away content and sharing ideas and providing a platform of education like you do with your podcast, like I do with mine, and and that's where we gotta get over the whole meathead, I'll just lift weights, deal.
Yes.
I think that's an important thing out there. But I want to get into some training because these guys, they definitely wanted to pick your brain for sure. When an athlete comes to the gym first time, when you get this new crop of draft, combine prospects or things along those lines, what's your evaluation process? How you deciding what direction you're going to go? Because you're coming. What's always cool and what I always I'm always intrigued about with the performance environment is that you're getting this melting pot of training levels and styles, and it's like, how do I get them all in the same spot at the same time?
Yeah, and I think the more you do it, I used to have a formal kind of evaluation day. You come in, you get evaluated, and now I like to get right to the training. I don't like to, a lot of times in the private sector, it's just what it is. Some people are going to come to you and they got 6 weeks, and
Yep.
I know the right answer is to say training's it's a long-term process. You got to slow cook it. There's no quick fixes, all that great stuff. But as you know, so specifically something like an NFL Combine, or there's a million other examples.
Right.
Yes, you should have been preparing for your whole life, for all year for this, but the fact remains that some kids are just going to come to you. Or the Combine's a great example. They played college football for 4 or 5 years, and in my opinion, the guys in your position, maybe, I don't know how you do it, but maybe during summer workouts, you might touch upon a proper 40-yard dash stance just for later on in their life when the time comes to, so they're getting a little taste of it. But it certainly shouldn't be the focus for
Right.
a college strength coach to work on bullshit combine tests. So when a kid comes to me and says, "Oh no, my coach never showed me any of this shit," my first reaction is, you know what? I don't disagree with him. That wasn't really his job.
Right.
His job was to get you ready to play football. And again, if you sprinkle it, if you are able to sprinkle it in a little bit for these guys, because it is going to be an important day down the road, awesome. But I'm not the guy that's like, your fucking coach never taught you this.
Right.
That wasn't his job. His job was to get you ready to play football. So I just like to preface this by saying, because some people say, "Oh, you private sector guys with the 6 week, we had them for 5 years, and you're trying to take credit for the 6 weeks." It's never trying to be a me versus you thing. I think there's like a big disconnect with the private guys and the college guys, and maybe
Right.
some of them are. We have douchebags on our side, you have douchebags on your
No
other
doubt.
side. It's how
No
it is,
doubt.
but it should never be that way. We're just in the position where a guy comes to me mid-January and he has his combine mid-February. I only have 4 to 6 weeks, so I do need to do some quick fix stuff, and there are some tricks and technique things you could do. So with that being said, because I get a decent amount of those, I don't get guys that say, all right, man, you got me for 5 years. I just started lending towards, let's get you in here and let's get you training right away. So my evaluation process became the warm-up. Or I should say my evaluation process came right when they walk in the front door. I'm looking at, are their shoulders uneven? How they stand, and are their feet externally rotated? Are they kind of leaning on one side? And I've even had some kids call me out, like, "What the hell are you looking at?" Like I'm checking them out, looking them up and down. So I'm always kind of like, looking shoulders, hips, feet, and so that's a big part of the evaluation. Just looking at them and talking to them,
Right.
huge. So get the information first. If they say, "Oh yeah, by the way, I separated my AC joint 2 months ago," we're going to get all that information before we put a barbell on their hand or even have them do a body weight squat. And then I have a general warm-up, a dynamic warm-up I put them through, which is showing me, relative strength, different imbalances, tons of mobility or immobility issues you're going to see. And all those things, they just start kind of reassuring me of what you saw when the guy or the girl walked in the door. So you see the shoulder thing, you see that foot externally rotated when they go to skip or they go to run, you're going to see those issues. Then when you get them on the ground, you do some dynamic mobility stuff.
Right.
You see some issues. And what I do is I just take notes during the warm-up. As they go, I ask them questions like, "Hey, does your right hip always feel a little bit tighter?" And then they'll say, oh yeah, I do. It's always when I'm sitting in class, that side hurts, or how's your ankle mobility? Because you could see when they're squatting, their heels are raising off the ground, or their feet are externally rotating, and then they'll say, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, last year I had an ankle sprain. It wasn't that bad, but it still bothers me. So we get all this information. If you design a proper warm-up, we get all this information right during the warm-up, write all that down, and then that's how we come up with the programming. And
Sure.
What I usually do is, I think it's a great way, especially when you have to train athletes in groups, you find out the major issues, and a lot of them overlap. We see everybody super tight internal rotators of the shoulders. You got the tight pecs, the weak upper backs, glutes, hip flexors. The Yanda's upper and lower cross syndrome. All those things. It's amazing how accurate that is, and how most athletes walk in here and have all the same things. But we kind of pick out the worst things that are really limiting them from moving properly. And then I design a specific pre-warm-up, basically, where all the specific stuff, if it's banded stretches with band traction, or the self-myofascial release with the lacrosse ball and foam rolling, I design specifically, if I'm training 10 guys for the combine, they'll have 10 different pre-warm-ups where they're taking 15 to 20 minutes each morning before we get started, and they're really addressing their specific issue. And then what I found, if they do that first, when I take them through the dynamic warm-up, where we're doing things like bodyweight squats and A skips and B skips and side shuffles, the movement skill type stuff, if we mobilize the areas that are real tight, if we activate the areas that are shut down, when they go through the general warm-up, they get more out of it because they could get their body in better positions. And now that just the training alone and the warm-up almost acts as rehab. And then when we get the barbell in their hands and we start training, they get much more out of that rather than just kind of addressing it or saying you can't train, like, oh, your shoulder's a little screwed up, you can't train today. If you address it first, you'll be amazed at how many things could kind of be corrected. And of course, you're always going to have, if it's a serious injury, I'm not the guy that says suck it up. I've done this long enough at this point. Higher level guys, I listen to everything they say. If they go, oh, I don't know, that doesn't feel right, we're either done doing that exercise or we're going to address it. It's not, stop being a pussy. Those days, being the tough, badass strength coach is long gone. You do much more harm than good. Hopefully,
no doubt.
Most people know that.
Well, you made a great point, and this is what I always, it kills me every time, we're at a high school football camp or something, a recruiting camp or whatever, and it's like every, position coach is sitting off in the corner and they're talking during the warm-up, and I'm like, this is the best time to evaluate. What are you talking about? No, you're walking, you go into the meeting later on, they're like, oh yeah, that kid was awesome. And I'm sitting there going, you mean the guy that was doing the same arm, same leg, and tripping, that guy? So I agree with you 100%, and you don't have to overcomplicate it. I mean, I do the same thing with our freshmen. Everybody, maybe they'll try to keep their freshmen separate or whatever, and I'm like, look, the training environment, the culture, the upperclassmen taking that guy under his arm like a page or something, and bringing him along with. That's awesome. That's the team. I mean, I'm training football players.
I agree 100%. Unless it's, like you said, a serious injury, most things, those can be dealt with. In the warm up, within the training, you don't have to. I feel like the answer always lies in the middle. I'm not a huge corrective exercise, super conservative guy, but I'm not the asshole, hard ass strength coach. Suck it up, throw some dirt on it, and end up. I'm happy to say nobody's ever been, knock on wood, injured in my gym, in my weight room, lifting weights. We inherit a lot of injured athletes, without a doubt. They're athletes. That's what they do. There's always going to be bumps and bruises, but I mean, the training alone does act as the rehab, as the corrective stuff. If you train properly and your programs are designed properly, it's amazing how those imbalances mysteriously, get fixed, and the little pains. That's why I know we'll talk a little bit about Triple H later, but I love, older guy from a training standpoint and athletic standpoint, that tons of bumps and bruises and pains, and like just thinking, yeah, I just thought that was what you were. Your guys are in pain. If you're an athlete, you get a certain age, you always have to be in pain. And after you squat, after you deadlift, your spine is supposed to hurt because that's just how it's always been. And the coolest thing with him is we've helped rehab all these injuries. And I'm the furthest thing from a physical therapist or a rehab specialist. I just feel like put together a proper training program that over the course of a couple months corrected all these things and had him feeling better. And at the same time, since it wasn't so ultra conservative, he got jacked and strong, along the way. So I don't know why too many people are like the extreme. Like, I'm a corrective exercise guy.
I agree.
We're only doing correctives until you're perfectly in balance. Like,
it's never going to happen.
Balance. You're never going to get there. It's not
never going to happen.
So
I agree. Well, you
tangent on that.
No, well, you mentioned him, and this kind of leads me into my next question. Was, I played college football. I've coached college football. I've worked in football my whole career. And so it always intrigues me with strength coaches, on how they're able to take some of these non-traditional sports, cricket or lacrosse or whatever, and they're like, they're coming up with these programs, and you mentioned Triple H in professional wrestling. Here's a guy who walks in your gym. He's freaking a giant. He's jacked already. He's like, I want to train, and you never, didn't pro wrestle. You didn't probably know much about the sport. What was your steps? Just take me into your brain for a minute and kind of say, how did I come up with how I'm going to create this program design for this individual athlete for a sport that maybe I'm not so familiar with?
Yeah, and I think that's where listening to your athletes, and a lot of times we know if it's high school level, that's a different ballgame, but him being a guy in his 40s, like I said, known for being jacked and known for training and looking the part and being strong. So it wasn't long of me talking to him before I realized he's a super intelligent guy and super passionate about our field too, which was very cool. So yeah, the first thing, it's a little overwhelming because like, damn, I never trained a professional wrestler. I watched it when I was a kid and loved it, but I certainly wasn't watching and looking at it as like, hey, I wonder what's the best way to train for this type of sport and this type of performance or entertainment. It was just, I was watching it purely for my entertainment type purposes. So the first thing I did was met with him. Before we touched the weight, he invited me over his house. We sat down in his living room, talked for 2 hours, and my first question to him was, what made you call me? What made you contact me? So I want to get information from him before I just start talking about training because, like you said, I have no idea. Is he calling me because he wants to get more jacked? Is he calling me because he was injured? I had no idea, So turned out he had just torn his bicep tendon, and all he was doing was doing a little pumping up. He was doing a movie on the set of a movie, pumping up, doing curls, I think he said with like 20 or 25-pound dumbbells, and ripped his bicep tendon off. He said that was like the moment where he realized I have to do something different, because previous to that, it's pretty well documented, even if you don't follow wrestling. He ruptured both quad tendons on both legs. Wow. Tore the quad off the bone, rolled up his leg like a lampshade. A brutal, nasty injury in the ring. So he had, quad tendon tears. I think he tore the other bicep tendon originally, then tore the other bicep tendon. A lot of ankle issues, super tight ankles. So he had tons of different ankle issues and surgeries and pain and problems. And he said he hit 40 and he was getting injured, more than usual.
Right.
And so he started studying training. He said he was always passionate about bodybuilding. That was his thing. He's even the MC at the Mr. Olympia a bunch of years, loves bodybuilding. So he always trained like a bodybuilder, and it was cool because a guy at his level, and you could sit here and say, oh, he did this wrong and that wrong. I always say to him, man, you did a lot more right than you did wrong. So let's not get that straight right off the bat. But he basically realized, I got to stop training like a bodybuilder. What I do is very athletic. I'm getting older. They travel 300 days of the year. Not only is that sport and that form of performance, they call it super demanding on your body. They're doing it after sitting crunched up in a car. Yeah. In the early days, they're driving everywhere. So they're in a car for 12 hours, get out, literally, do one of these and get in a wrestling ring and body slam people and drop elbows and, jumping off the top rope. So when you look at it, I mean, they are tremendous athletes.
No doubt. I agree.
But more so in the sense that they don't have an off season and they travel 300 days. Amazing.
Wow.
So I listened to him first. So the main reason why he was calling me was more, I need to stop getting injured. He said, even if I have to sacrifice my look at this point, I'm willing to lose a little bit of muscle if I have to perform better, feel better, get out of some pain, and be able to still wrestle for a couple more years without getting injured. So once I knew that, then I knew it was time to now let me take a step back and really kind of basically watch film, which is kind of funny because I went back and I watched a bunch of his matches.
Right.
And the old adage, you watch the player, not the game. When you watch WWE wrestling, you're watching for the entertainment of it. But I really just watched him and saw, what is he doing? How many times is he lifting somebody over his head? How many does he jump off the top rope, or is he a guy that does more physical stuff, like getting hit with a chair and even more to bulletproof his body rather than make him a high flyer type of thing. So I learned his style of wrestling, wrote down the whole injury history, then asked him, what do you love about lifting? Like, what are the things you do love to do that if I were to say to you, we can't do that anymore, you'd almost be pissed and upset about it. So he told me the things that he really likes, and then he told me then I asked him the things that I thought, that he thought were damaging in the weight room. And that's when he said things like, so I love the squat, I love the deadlift, but my spine, my back, it's not muscular, my spine hurts after.
Sure. And
he's like, I haven't been able to walk up or down stairs without severe knee pain since he tore the quad tendon. So his thing was, we might have to bag the squats. I love doing them, but I just don't feel right.
Right.
When I do them, I'm 3 or 4 days of not being able to do much of anything athletic. So I mean, there's a million different things I did, but just stuff like that. I taught him how to box squat, and after he said he didn't think he should squat because of the knees. Now the box squat's become his favorite exercise. He's got zero knee pain. He's a technician. He's awesome because he's he's very into it. So when you teach him the exercise, he becomes a true technician at it.
Right.
So he's got nearly perfect box squat form. Squatted 500 pounds at parallel box. Great form, holding the tension. Really got everything down. And he's like, man, if you would have told me I'd be squatting with you over 500 pounds with no knee pain, I would have thought you were crazy. So, that was one of the things. The big overdevelopment. He trained like a bodybuilder, so Monday was chest day, and it would be 16 to 20 sets of chest. So we got rid of that and changed them to full body workouts or upper lower body splits. Tons of mobility. We spend at least a half hour warming up every single day. We train at midnight sometimes, and we still. It's never, hey man, it's late. Let's get right into it. If it's midnight, we warm up until 12:30, and we start working out at 12:45. It's just he knows I'm in it for the long haul with him, and he's dedicated too. So things like that, adding the warm up in. Another huge difference for him was he used to do a ton of heavy overhead stuff, overhead pressing, and a lot of his back work came from just a lot of machine-based, lat pull-downs, rows, heavy dumbbell rows, but where he wasn't really using as much upper back. It was more,
bicep,
grip strength and bicep strength. So one of the big changes we made the first 3 months, and I always think this is pretty cool, we didn't lift any weights. Any upper back stuff we did was either with the band, 9 million different versions of band pull-aparts, iso holds, Blackburns, YWTs, that type of stuff, and a lot of eccentric type stuff, like body weight eccentric chin-ups, and more time under tension type things with iso holds and band stuff. So within the first 3 months, the first body part that he said, he saw a difference growing, because he was ready to lose some muscle because now he's training like an athlete instead of a bodybuilder.
Right.
So he's thinking he might kind of waste away a little bit. He's getting measured for a suit, and his back measurement went up like 3/4 of an inch or an inch or something. And he was like, my upper back got bigger and like more jacked. When people are taking pictures with me and pat me on the back, they're like, whoa, what the hell? And he's like, we haven't even lifted a weight, we're doing all this body weight stuff, ISO hold stuff, 100 band pull aparts a day, and his back gets bigger, more jacked. And the side effect of that was it was almost like a revelation. One day we were barbell benching, and he was like, "Holy shit! I just realized my shoulders don't hurt. My shoulders used to fucking kill when I barbell benched. I thought we would have to take that out of the program, but because we were working on mobilizing the chest while we're hitting all this upper back work, that we were really activating those smaller muscles rather than taking a 150-pound dumbbell and kind of barely rowing it where your upper back really isn't getting much activation at all. We did things like that, and I think I kind of won him over because when he first hired me, we did a 1-month kind of probation thing because I was driving 3-hour commute to get there. So he was like, I don't know if you even want to do this.
Right.
And he wanted to see how he liked it. And at the month, it was, hey, let's try another month. I'm really starting to feel a difference. Let's try another month. And now we're heading into next year. This year, come WrestleMania, will be our 5th WrestleMania together already. We're hitting 5 years. So
that's awesome.
That's the long story of how to take on a new client. And now, I designed the weight room for the WWE Performance Center, and a lot of those guys are training similar like athletes, and we've had an impact in that world, which is one of the cooler things that has happened for me in my profession is my relationship with the WWE.
No, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. You hit it, the nail right on the head with professional athletes, and I think we make the mistake as coaches where we sit there and we say these young athletes they can't be taught, or they're not willing to be taught, or things like that. And it's really it's changing now, and I would always say, my experiences with the Bucks and the Bengals and NFL Europe and all that is my dog's going nuts here. Hey, stop. Is that they're a more informed consumer. They totally, they want to take the time to learn now, and we make the mistake as coaches sometimes to say, you know what, they're young, they're not going to learn. Yep. And the sooner that we can cross that threshold, that line with our athletes, the better off it's going to be. And I think that's awesome. And you obviously have that, and it's led to a 5-year relationship and a great relationship with a great athlete. So that's awesome, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And kind of going back, tying in what we were talking about before, is people putting you down for marketing yourself, so to speak. How the other thing I asked him was, man, how did you find me? How did you come to call me? And when he had those injuries, he said he started researching online, Googling, train like an athlete, athletic training, mobility, whatever. And he said, a bunch of guys in our industry, he's like, the same names kept popping up. And what he did was he went to all their websites and read, and he said the thing that kind of separated me was I had my Ask Joe. I started in 2002. So he goes, it seemed like there's a lot of good guys out there, a lot of knowledgeable guys. But he goes, you were one of the guys that I saw you answering questions in 2002, and you had athletes like David Deal, who you wrote about training him as a rookie in the NFL. And then I saw an Ask Joe in 2011, and you're talking about him winning the Super Bowl, and I see a picture of you training him on your website. And so he goes, it showed like you had guys that have literally been sticking with you for 10, 12 years. And, he goes, and then what I was reading, I put the free information out there. It's like what I was reading, it just made sense. I tried a couple things on my own that you had talked about or you showed in a YouTube video, and I noticed a little bit of a difference. So finally, I was like, let me call this guy. So, if I didn't put that information out there, he never knows who I am. We don't have this relationship.
Well, absolutely. Well, you said
there's nothing wrong with putting that information out there.
Not at all.
Marketing douchebag.
Yeah, not at all. And that's exactly right. I mean, there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do it. And obviously, you're doing it the right way. But part of that is, you've put out these resources, and people think, and they think that you make all this money off of all these different things, and they don't really truly understand how much work goes into it. And I know recently you just put out Defranco's Insider, and yes. you got your podcast and all the different products. I probably bought every one of them. But talk a little bit about Defranco Insider and what you're trying to do with that, and where you're headed with it.
And that's another thing that I just want to touch. You touched upon it, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves that I go over with young kids is the backstory of everybody. I'm not saying you touched on something that not something you said is a pet peeve of mine, but you talk about people thinking, "Oh, you must be a multimillionaire," and the phrase "it must be nice," like when I see somebody say, "Oh, you guys put out that new strength DVD. I heard it selling well. Man, it must be nice to have a DVD that sells." That phrase, "it must be nice," and I'm the most. Anybody who knows the real me, I'm a passionate guy, but I'm not a yeller. I'm not a screamer. I'm just even keel. I don't get mad.
Yeah.
Man, there's one thing that pisses me off is when people say it must be nice because and this is bringing me to the Defranco Insider is because how we're able to put out a DVD, and yes, I'm not going to lie, the DVDs make money and they sell well, and we're super proud of them. But the 20 years it took to get the information, the amount of money and time that I spent to put it all together and make a nice little Cliff Notes version of all the thousands of stuff that I learned. Me and Smitty do the DVDs together. So we have 40 years combined experience.
Yeah.
Take all that time and money and effort and wrap it up into 2 hours of the best stuff that we've ever seen. And, the must be nice thing is 20 years ago when I was broke, living with my parents still, begging for money, had a gym in a storage closet, as my first gym. Nobody was saying how nice that must be.
That's right.
It wasn't like, "Oh, it must be nice. You get to train your guys in a fucking storage closet with no equipment in it." Like, wow, you're so lucky. But so there's always the backstory. When I see somebody successful, my first question is, and I did this with Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, and I had the pleasure of meeting Vince McMahon. You don't get much of a better businessman to pick his brain.
No doubt.
My thing was, where were you before you started and got into the WWE? I want to know the backstory of when you were broke, when nobody knew who you were, because the shit you did then, that's why you could have a pay-per-view that makes $2 million.
Absolutely.
It doesn't happen overnight. So with that all being said, the Defranco Insider is a culmination of, we've had some ebooks out now. I teamed up with James Smith, Smitty, and we had this whole DVD series, which have been awesome. We've gotten such great reviews, and we think we really helped a lot of coaches out with them.
It's great stuff. Amped and Speed, I've got both of them. Awesome.
I appreciate that, and they all kind of came out of necessity too. We're talking about listening to your athletes. Every YouTube video you see of me, every DVD we put out, we just listen. What are people tweeting at us? What are people emailing us? The Amped, that was our first DVD collaboration. Me and Smitty had known each other, and he was known as like the diesel guy who does all this grip strength stuff, and then I was more like the combine guy or the football training guy. But it was funny. He did a video on something like a quick shoulder warm up before you bench press.
Right.
I had just done a YouTube video on. I was sitting in my old apartment, rolling around on the lacrosse ball, doing some myofascial release on the glutes and the piriformis, and it turned out being my most popular YouTube video at the time. And I had what I thought were much cooler videos of guys bench pressing 480 and running a 4.3 40-yard dash, and he had all these crazy feats of strength with strongman and grip training. And he called me one day. He's like, "Man, I put this video up of me doing a shoulder warm-up, and the response has been ridiculous." And then I go, "Holy shit, it's funny you say that. I just did a video of me sitting on a lacrosse ball in my apartment, and people did it, and they told me how great their low back felt, and they're doing that before they squat, and they're feeling better." And he was like, "We should do a warm-up DVD. There's really not a lot of information on that. It's either like the warm-up people that are overkill in the warm-up, or the old-school meathead who just walks in the gym and starts to lift." So that's how that came about. It was like the feedback we were getting. It was, "Hey, let's do this DVD on the warm-up," and it got such a huge response. It led into, then we kind of made it the format of a workout. You warm up, then you're either going to, either lift, throw something, do some sort of power, a throw or a jump or speed, a sprint. Then your accessory movements are extreme DVD. We always finish our warm-up workouts with some specific core training to put out hardcore. So it's like we kind of followed the system of a workout because people were asking for it.
Sure.
So it wasn't just random, let's put out a DVD. And then the next progression was we started giving our CPPS monthly workouts. People now we had all these DVDs with all this information, but the next thing people were asking us was, we want to see it in action. We want to just see like a real workout, sets and reps. We know everybody's different. Not that, you just want to copy anybody else, but where do you incorporate the speed stuff? Where do you incorporate the accessory stuff? Can we just see a workout at Defranco's gym?
Yep.
So we came up with, instead of these big, elaborate kind of scientific DVDs, let's just put a fly on the wall, a camera, and show a workout. Like, let people come behind the scenes. We'll make it super affordable at $15, $17. We'll show you the whole workout, and then we'll write a little manual that goes with it explaining exactly why we chose the exercises we did and, how we're incorporating them. And it took all, we had such a huge response with that first one. We did a second one, and then it became, hey, let's do these monthly.
Sure.
And then it was the same people were buying them every month, and then they were the ones that came up with pretty much the Defranco Insider, because they were saying, listen, you guys are well established in this industry. You don't have to sell me anymore on your new workout of the month. I just want to get it. Can you just send it to me each month? And then the light bulb went off, like, why don't we have some sort of a home base where you could sign up, and every month we're going to put that workout on. And then, we both have the same mentality. One of my core values is over-deliver. Regardless of what I charge for the products that I need to charge for, whatever you pay, I want you to make that investment back tenfold. I truly feel and believe that and want that. So we said, you know what? We're going to charge the same thing we were charging for the monthly workouts. You're going to get the monthly workout, but we sat down and we said, let's add a ton more shit to this. And
that's awesome.
We added an exercise index, a forum, premium workouts we weren't able to videotape, like Triple H getting ready for WrestleMania. A lot of people were interested in that.
Sure.
The WWE filmed some stuff on that I couldn't use, but he allowed me to provide the actual workout we used for the 3 weeks leading up to WrestleMania. That's on the Defranco Insider, and workouts like that, kind of VIP type workouts. We give you a sample week or a sample month of some of our higher level clients. And then we're doing contests and giveaways and all this stuff. So it's just kind of a one-stop shop we're hoping, anything you need for training.
Again, that's not an easy thing to put out there, is it?
It took us, a lot of people throw it out there, we've been working on this forever. Again, it's 40 years, a culmination of 40 years, but the specific content that is on that site right now for the first month, without me exaggerating, without lie, it has taken us a year of working on some aspect. We didn't work on it every single day, but every week we did something at least a couple times a week working on that site, and it took a full year to pack that site with what's on it. So we're super proud of it, and we feel the value, for $19 a month, the value that is on there. Again, if you're not making that investment back tenfold, we're doing something wrong. And again, there's no commitment. I don't want to sound like a salesman, but cancel if you don't like it, don't sign up. The next month, you're done. So there's really no risk on anybody's part also.
Well, anytime, anymore, it's so hard to get away and go to conferences and go to events and talk to people and things like that. And so be able to do it on your time anywhere is always a positive. And like I said, knowing, having some products and things like that as well, I know how much work goes into it. So I appreciate it, and I know everybody else does as well.
Thank you.
Shoot, I've taken up more than I asked for. So I want to get you going, man. But we close the show out each time with some resources here. So give me, the best piece of coaching advice you've ever received, and a quote that you have hanging up in your room, or something that you live by.
The coaching advice is tough, but I want to give you something I really live by my daily. I'm going to go, I don't know if this is coaching or not, but I'm going to go back to my dad, because I use it in relationships.
Yep.
And so coaching is relationship.
No doubt.
His big thing was always, treat people the way you want to be treated, and if you want to always be fair and you want to always do the right thing, always put yourself in the other person's position. Before you say or do what you're going to do, sometimes you're going to be the boss and you're going to be talking to somebody so-called below you. Sometimes you're the guy talking to the boss. And he said, and I truly try to use that where, again, being an owner, if you got to talk to an employee about, everybody wants to get paid more, they want this or they want that. And there's a lot of times where I battle with, I want to do the right thing, I want to be fair, but I also need to do what's right for business. and my family. And when I do that, let me put myself in his shoes.
Yep.
20 years ago, 21 years old. If I went to my boss and asked this, what would I think was fair? And I do that with everything I do, and I hope anybody who knows me personally, not just from the internet, but actually has had dealings with me, I think they would say I'm easy to get along with. I'm passionate, and I stand firm for what I believe in.
Sure.
But at the same time, I'm very fair and generous with people, and that comes from my dad telling me that. It's something I live by, and I think more coaches could use that advice. Is especially once you start getting in positions of power.
Sure.
Yes, you need to be a leader and you need to take control, but it doesn't mean you have to be a dick to people. I'm never, ask any intern that's ever been in here, yes, they have to do some shitty intern type things like clean the bathroom, but I've never talked down to an intern and, go pick this up, go do that. I say please, I say thank you to everybody to this day, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think it makes me pussy. I think that's the way everybody, being nice to people is very underrated, unfortunately.
I agree.
And I think more people could live by those rules. So that's my coaching advice. The quote that stands out to me all the time that I love is success usually comes to those who are too busy to be looking for it. I look back at all the success that I've had, and if I look at the big kind of game changers in my business, the calls from Triple H, I've had TV networks call me and offer TV shows, and the document, even the thing like Strong, the Strong documentary that was done here, and the Driven Beyond Strength series online, like all those kind of cool opportunities that came to me. I was always surprised when they came because I was so engrossed in training athletes, putting content out there, helping people, that when you get that call, hey, this is Men's Health, we just named you one of the top 10 gyms in the country, when I don't have any connections over there, I don't know any of the guys that write for the magazine. It was just like, whoa, really? Oh, cool. And it's, this is Triple H, I want to talk to Joe Defranco, I'm thinking about having him train me, and it's almost like I'm taken back, like, whoa, how the hell did you know who I was? And he's like, are you kidding me? You're all over the internet. Like, people know who you are. But I'm really so engrossed in what I do. It's not like I do things for money or, maybe somebody famous will call me and I'll get them as the new client. Or maybe I'll be able to have some TV network call me if I keep working hard. It's just, I just love what I do. I'm in the day-to-day grind. And it seems like every couple weeks I get a phone call of a cool opportunity, and it's because I think I'm just so focused on the day-to-day.
Absolutely. Well, it's like we talk about on the show all the time, making the big time where you're at. It doesn't matter where it is, how much you're making, all those types of things. Focus on the present moment, and good things will happen to good people for sure. What about some resources, a book, an app, and a website, maybe a recommendation?
Oh, man, I'll give you just real quick. Speed books, I think you always got to go back to finding the Charlie Francis stuff, Training for Speed, the Charlie Francis training system. I also got to throw ours in there. I think we simplified a lot of stuff. Speed by Joe Defranco and Jim Smith. I'm going to throw that plug in there.
We'll link them all up for sure.
Strength. We just have our strength product out too. It's funny, all of our stuff has come off of these other products, trying to just kind of simplify them and almost like the Cliff Notes version. But resources, I still think, I know everybody says, Science and Practice of Strength Training and Super Training. I'm not going to lie, they're not books that I sat down and read from cover to cover, but they are on my desk. I do use them as a resource if I want to dig a little deeper.
Yep.
I do think if you're in this industry, you should understand, the body, how it functions, and understand a little bit deeper of how things work. So I think that should be on everybody. Special Strength Training Manual for Coaches is another good one that I've been using as a resource often, by Verkhoshansky. Special Strength Training Manual for Coaches is a good one. I still love Dinosaur Training for strength training. I don't care what anybody says. I love that book. It's motivational also. That was one of the first strength training books I ever read, so I got to throw that in there. As far as mobility stuff, I think Ann and Chris Frederick, Stretch to Win stuff. Kelly Starrett, I think everybody knows him now. He's getting super popular. But the Becoming a Supple Leopard, you need that one. Those are kind of my core books. I'll tell you what, as far as business and coaching in general, Jay Ferrugia just turned me on to Essentialism by Greg McEwen or Greg McEwen or something. But it's awesome because it talks about, the whole thing is less is more, and it talks about, you know, every time you say yes to something, you say no to a whole lot of other things. And I think in training, there's so much information out there, we end up doing too much or we get brain overload. You need to, they have a great quote in there, something like learn to distinguish the vital few from the trivial many.
That's awesome.
There's a ton of shit out there. You focus on the core, like the 80-20 rule. Focus on, you know, the 20% of the stuff that makes the biggest difference. Focus 90% of your time on those 20% things, you know. So I always love that quote. It's from the book. I don't know if I butchered it, but it's something along those lines.
I'm gonna look that one up.
Distinguish the vital few from the trivial many. So those are some books off the top of my head in the different disciplines. And hey, I'll tell you what, I'm not just saying it because I'm on it, but I told you before we talked, this podcast right here, Iron Game Chalk Talk, I'm in the car 3 hours, 4 hours a day, driving back and forth to Connecticut. This is a staple for me.
I appreciate that, man.
The Elite FTS podcast. I partnered on it with my gym in Texas. Aubrey has a podcast. They switched the name to Total Human Optimization. Those are three of my core podcasts that I listen to. And it's funny, I'm not a big computer or app guy, but we brought up notes on as an app. I'm a guy that has a million different notes. So
I'm with you.
That would be my number one app to kind of keep everything in one space instead of having papers everywhere like I do right now.
Me too. What about and last one is just a website. Any websites that you kind of go to regularly?
Yeah, I think I'm still. I still go to I'm not online as much. I got to say, I'm getting most of my information from podcasts and stuff. But you know, I highly recommend Elite FTS is kind of still my go-to. Still love the Q&A. I'm going to start doing more stuff with those guys again. They just equipped my new gym here that I'm sitting in, my new office here. I feel like they have a nice spectrum of, you know, they got the powerlifting, they got the sports training, strongman. They have a nice spectrum of different things going on over there. So that's the website I go to. And then if I do have time, I kind of just float on YouTube and type in specific.
Yeah.
If I'm looking for more speech training ideas, we've gotten to the age, it's almost like iTunes. Instead of buying the whole CD, you buy the one song you want.
That's right.
I used to have 10 websites I went to every day. Now it's like, go on YouTube, type in speed, see who comes up, find the credible guys, see what they're doing. And it's more picking and choosing, you know, the individual topic that I might be into that day rather than like my core websites. I don't know if that's a cop-out, but it's kind of what I'm personally doing at this point.
No, I'm with you. That's like a search engine for me, not just for strength training, but, you know, teaching my kids something or putting something together.
It's my number one website.
I go to YouTube as well. I'm with you, man. Well,
Google and YouTube. There's your two best websites.
That's awesome. Well, brother, you know, this is, you know, obviously you've had an impact on me. You know, like I said, I've bought several of your products and appreciate the effort and the time it takes to put out educational materials, and this is what this show is all about. It's about, you know, providing a learning platform for coaches, and I know that's at your core. That's what you're about, and what you do, and I'm excited for you with your with where the gym's headed, where you're headed online, and all those things, man. And I truly appreciate you taking the time today to spend with the listeners and just share some golden nuggets, man. So thanks so much.
Thank you. And I'll give you a quick plug of all the guys I've ever trained for the Combine. The best transformation I've ever seen during his college career is Michael Rivera, hands down, and that is your guy. So
I appreciate that.
You and thank you for you know, doing everything you do, not just with your athletes, but with this podcast.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk. Thanks to this week's guest as well as our sponsors, EliteForm.com and IgnitionAPG.com for bringing this episode to you for free. Make sure to check out RonMcKeefery.com where you can join our mailing list, find the show notes, including all the links and resources mentioned, and information about Coach McKeefery's other products. While you are there, please join Coach McKeefery in the comments section thanking our guest for sharing. If you haven't subscribed to Iron Game Chalk Talk on YouTube or iTunes yet, make sure to do so. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome. Coach McKeefery can be found on Twitter at @RMcKeefery, on Facebook and YouTube at /Ron.McKeefery. That's it for this week. Be sure to check back next week for another great episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk.